So, our very own Justin Haskins, speak of the devil, had a piece published on Fox News titled, "Biden administration is quietly planning for a future where you don't own money." So, Justin tells me that this article did really well, got lots of attention. We've covered the idea of the digital dollar or central bank-backed digital currencies a number of times on this podcast, so our constant listeners should already be aware of the potential concerns about a scheme like this. But for those that are tuning in irregularly, or for those that need a refresher, Justin, care to give us an abridged rundown of the idea of a digital currency?
Right. So a central bank digital currency, there's a bunch of proposals all across the world for this right now. It's really one of these ideas that's sweeping the West, mainly because they've all destroyed their existing fiat paper-based currencies. And so they're trying to come up with ways to create a new currency. Well, the United States is one of those places that's looking at considering that. The Biden administration released an executive order back in March of last year, directing various departments in the government to study a central bank digital currency and issue reports about whether they should do it or not, what the cost benefits are of doing it, et cetera. The Federal Reserve has been studying this for a while. They've had all kinds of pilot projects going on. The Hamilton project is one of those things. They got stuff at MIT and elsewhere. So what is it exactly? A central bank digital currency is a new currency. It's not a digital version of the existing dollar. It's a new thing entirely. Unlike the existing currency, though, there's no corresponding physical part to it. So a lot of the things that people do on a day-to-day basis today, they're not using physical cash anymore, but there's always a corresponding physical dollar that is supposed to be related to that. So you can always go to the bank and go get cash, right? But a central bank digital currency wouldn't have that. It would only exist in digital form. And because it only exists in digital form, it has all kinds of really wonderful benefits from the perspective of authoritarian governments. Like, it's programmable, it's traceable. They'll know everywhere that everywhere you go, everywhere you spend money. They'll be able to create it with a push of a button. They'll be able to tie all kinds of rules to it that determine what people can use money for or not. They can easily airdrop money, essentially, into people's bank accounts. It has all kinds of really creepy implications for what society might look like. They already have this they've already started rolling stuff like this out in China and other parts of the world. And that's exactly how they're using it there. And in the various Biden administration reports, they talk about how a central bank digital currency needs to promote equity. It needs to promote financial inclusion. It needs to battle climate change and help improve the environment. Well, it's going to fight organized crime, like help the government fight organized crime. All those things require a programmable, traceable, easily manipulated digital currency. If it's not programmable and they can't trace it and they can't track it and they can't control it, then it doesn't have the ability to do any of the things they're promising it will do. So that's how the digital dollar is shaping up. There isn't a formal proposal for it yet, but all the pieces are coming together. There's going to be a formal proposal for it now. They're just trying to figure out the details of it.
So elaborate a little bit on the part of the title that's you won't own it, because that seems kind of like a foreign concept to the idea of money. Like, it's in my pocket. Like, what are you talking about? But right. You very specifically mentioned that in the headline, that you won't own it. So can you elaborate on that?
One of the craziest things about the concept of a central bank digital currency, and this is something that we're just now starting to realize, is that based on all of the documents we've seen from the Biden administration and the Federal Reserve, it seems to be that the way that they're planning on designing it, you just wouldn't be able to own it. It wouldn't be possible for you to own a central bank digital dollar. And what I mean by that is this. I think the easiest way to explain this is to think about how the existing banking system works. Most people don't realize this, but when you go to the bank right now and you take cash or you deposit a check or whatever, and you give it to the bank now owns that money. You actually no longer own the money anymore. So when you give dollars to the bank, it's their dollars. It's not your dollars. Now, they're legally required to give you your dollars back when you ask for it, but on demand. but through regulations and stuff, unless they go out of business, in which case they don't necessarily have to do that. But it belongs to them. That's why they don't have to ask you permission to spend it on something, to go loan it out to somebody or something like that. They don't ask you permission before they do that because they own the money. See, so they know all of your transactions and all of this stuff because it's their money, actually. It's in their bank, so they own it. You just have rights to use it. But you always have the ability to go to the bank and take the money out of the bank, put it in your pocket, and walk out the door. And now the cash is yours. You own that cash, okay? So you walking around, you own the cash. But with a central bank digital currency, there is no way for you to take it and stick it in your pocket and walk out the door. There is no cash equivalent. It always has to be in a bank account or either with with the Federal Reserve directly or with an intermediary, which is most likely an existing bank, public or private, okay? That's what all of these reports from the Biden administration and the Federal Reserve are showing. They're showing that they're planning on designing it in such a way that you won't be able to put it onto a hard drive or something like that and stick it in your pocket and possess it physically and own it physically yourself. You'll always have to have it deposited in someone else's account, which means that all of the money, the digital money, will be owned by someone other than regular people. And because they own it, all of these various constitutional rights and things that normally come with ownership and possession and privacy and all this other stuff probably is going to get thrown out the window, because you can't claim, well, search and seizure or all these different constitutional rights and stuff if the money actually isn't your money. It's technically someone else's money. They actually own it, and you're just able to use it through this account. That's why this is really so dangerous, because when you don't own things, you lose a lot of rights associated with ownership. And if you don't own money, then that's a big problem, because you need money to do basically everything. So all of your privacy rights, all of these controls, you just don't have the ability to do it. So when people think of programmable currencies, and they're often thinking about, the government spying on them or tracking them or tracing them, it's almost as though they have a camera watching you spend your money on things or something. That's what I think people associate these ideas with. The truth is, it's their money. You're just using their money. And that's the really scary part of it. If you don't own it, you don't really have rights. You don't really have true control of it. And that's what this article is focused on. And that's one of the things that we really want to highlight.
Thanks to some genuine journalism by pranksters on the internet, we got some insight into how digital currencies may be managed in at least the European Union. So some small online show was somehow able to connect with Christine Lagarde, president of the European Central Bank. The prankster asked Lagarde about the creation of the digital euro. Now, in the European Union, much like the United States, the digital currency idea is still in the quote-unquote research phase of things. However, when she asked about it coming out, she seemed pretty definitive that it was coming out, but that it's going to be decided officially in October. And then also, and this is kind of a side note, Justin, she mentions how it's necessary, in her opinion, to create a digital currency to ensure that we don't get to a point where we're dependent on either an unfriendly nation's currency like China or Russia, or on, quote, a friendly currency, but which is activated by a private corporate entity like Facebook or like Google. So I thought that was very interesting. She brought that up twice during this interview. So I thought that was very interesting. She says, as I've said, I don't want Meta, Google, or Amazon to suddenly come up with a currency that will take over the sovereignty of Europe. She legitimately says that, which is pretty wild.
It's okay for them to control our elections, but not our finance system. Yeah,
that's where they draw the money at the central bank, Jim. No, that's for them. They control the money, not Amazon.
It's probably one of these secretly under the table agreed to things where it's like, you have to be all in on the Great Reset and we'll protect you and ESG and all of that. Just don't touch the money. Leave that to us. But that's a whole side point. But the clip I want to actually show you, Justin, is where she talks about the pranksters, again, ask her about the control that would come with this type of digital currency. So, Andy, if we have that clip ready, go ahead and play it.
The digital euro is going to have a limited amount of control. There will be control. You're right. You're completely right. We are considering whether for very small amounts, anything that is around 300, 400 euros, we could have a mechanism where there is zero control. But that could be dangerous. The terrorist attacks on France back 10 years ago were entirely financed by those very small anonymous credit cards that you can recharge in total anonymity.
Yep. So there you go. There you go, Justin. At baseline, she is admitting to limited controls. We don't want it completely unlimited because of terrorism or something like that. So there can't be any anonymity. We have to make sure there's at least some controls, even in minor transactions that you would probably go into McDonald's. We have to make sure that's tracked. So Justin, thoughts on this, and then I want to get Jim and Chris's reaction to everything that we said so far.
Yeah. Look. There is a wealth of evidence that shows that this is going to happen. At least that's the plan, that all of the big major financial institutions, not just central banks, but all of them are aware of this, both in Europe and in America. And that one of the biggest selling points, as hard as it might be for regular people to believe this, is that they'll get to watch what everyone's doing. That's a bonus. Not small amounts, maybe. Notice how she said maybe. We're not even sure about that. Maybe, not the small amounts, but the large amounts, because then we can stop terrorism, we can stop organized crime.
No, even the small amounts because of terrorism. That's what she said.
Well, she wasn't sure. She said we're thinking about it. That's what she said. We have to balance all these things, and maybe we could have this sort of, we'll collect less data. She didn't say no data. She said we'll collect less data for small dollar amounts or small dollar accounts, but with everybody else, we're going to have to keep a really close eye on what's going on there.
Chris, what are your thoughts on all of this, all this stuff that we're talking about with this upcoming digital dollar?
I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on this. I mean, I sometimes wonder if it's less likely than we're making it out to be that it's going to actually come into fruition. I think that the American people, by and large, would just never allow this to happen. So I wonder if this is this these
you mean like being locked in their homes and forced to wear masks everywhere they go, Chris?
Changing.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's just
no. I mean, I just. I'm not saying that I don't think it's impossible that it could happen, but I do think that the spirit of American individualism and freedom, I can't see 330 million people just saying, "Oh shucks, I'm just going to give up all my autonomy to this central bank digital currency." I think that it would precipitate a
I'm not going to say anything.
No. Good.
Let Jim talk.
Wait. I will go to Jim, but Chris, I'm glad that you have that hesitation or whatever, because I'm going to address that a little bit later. But go ahead, Jim.
Chris, when I have to take you out for lunch today, I think I'm going to have to make you order from the children's menu because you're as naive as a child. With that take,
that's harsh.
That's harsh.
That's really harsh.
Chris could take it.
Yeah,
he's a big boy. Well, he's not. He's a big boy, but he's still going to order from the kids menu. Look,
I'm going to go to town. I'm going to order the most expensive thing.
Get the filet mignon.
Yeah, they're going to Morton's Steakhouse.
Yeah, make him take you to Morton's.
Well, I mean, look. So we're going to be accused of peddling conspiracy theories here, as often happens, and as I've said on this podcast many times, you can't call them conspiracy theories anymore because they end up being spoiler alerts. I'm trying to think, Justin, of some crazy liberty crushing idea from our ideological leftist global elites, either they're inside government or outside government, that hasn't eventually come true or almost come true, or it'll come true, we'll make it happen later. I mean, just going back to COVID, I mean, the idea, Chris, that, the American people, 330 million of us won't put up with this. We're not going to be able to choose to do these sorts of things. These sorts of things will be imposed upon us by the people who are in the actual control of our monetary system globally, of our government here in the United States and in the European Union. The idea that we can opt in or out of these crazy leftist ideas that always crush our liberty and that always end up being expensive and don't work and lead to misery and death often. The idea that we can opt out of that stuff and live our lives the way we want, it is becoming decreasingly, we're becoming decreasingly able to opt out of those sorts of things. And this would be, I would think, the last hurdle they would have to leap in order to completely control the population. If you can't spend $300 without the government knowing what you spent it on, and obviously with the intent to tell you whether you did it right or wrong, and to keep score. Why do you think they're tracking of it? It's to keep score. And what kind of score? A social credit score. And so you will have to live your life always thinking about, how do I stay in the good graces of the people who actually run the society? I am not allowed to make choices that I may feel are good for me or for my family. I have to be thinking about living my life in a way that doesn't irritate the people that can actually crush my life by, I don't know, deleting all of my money or saying you're not allowed to spend that on this thing or that thing anymore because we don't want you to. And so the idea that we can opt out of this sort of thing, where have we been able to do that in the past?
Yeah,
just even in the recent past, we haven't been able to do that.
While Jim was talking, I was thinking about Chris's comments, and they seem very, very familiar, Chris. And they seem familiar to a point when you were reading The Great Reset for the first time and thinking, "Oh, this seems a little too conspiracy. I don't know if this is actually going to happen." And then where do you find yourself now when it comes to ESG and everything? Exactly.
Well, hold on, wait. I want to. I just.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Ha ha ha. Yeah, no, I'm a big idiot for having an alternative point of view. Whatever. I'm sorry. I'm not a hive mind. I have my own mind.
All right. So he admitted it. All right. Let's move on.
Let me say one thing. But no, seriously.
No, go ahead. I'm just joking.
Yeah, of course. Just think about this. Think about the amount of data that would be necessary for them to comb through in order to micromanage all of our transactions. And I think this is very similar to what they did with the Patriot Act when the NSA said, we're going to vacuum up all the emails and phone calls and text messages that Americans do so that we can filter out, terroristic signals. How did that work for them? That's been a complete and utter failure. So how in the world could they say, well, we're going to create this new system in which I don't understand. You guys are throwing me off my train of thought with all these weird gestures.
Right here. We got a perfect comment. Perfect timing. AI
but what I'm saying is, actually, Christine, that is a very good
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Or you could create some crazy algorithm that could do it. I mean, yeah, I guess that's possible, but I still, in my heart of hearts, have this feeling that the American people, my brothers and sisters, especially in the Heartland, in flyover country where I live,
amen.
We will take our pitchpitchforks and we will go to the central bank and we will take Jerome Powell.
Whoa! AOC would say this is an incitement of violence. Let's stop.
Chris. Now you're not just getting from the kids menu, but I'm going to pick it out too because you're not. You're just going to get chicken tenders and fries and a small soda.
Well, look. Actually, but to Chris's point, actually, I mean, I do think that what Chris is saying is he's saying he doesn't deny that this is going to be attempted. Am I right, Chris? This is going to be attempted. You're saying you think that the public will push back enough that it isn't going to ultimately happen.
Yes,
Am I getting that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So actually, I mean, I hope that he's right. I mean, otherwise we're all totally screwed. If Chris